There are approximately 1,200 rock cut caves in India. Almost 1,000 caves are located in western India since the region is dominated by the Sahyadri hill range, the basalt rock of which is ideal for carving. The celebrated group of caves at Ellora, located 26 kilometers north of Aurangabad in Maharashtra, is one of the largest rock cut monastery temple complexes in the world. It features Jain, Buddhist, and Hindu monuments and developed between the 6th and 10th century CE. Buddhist monuments occupy the southernmost part of the site, while Hindu monuments are located in the middle, and towards the north are a small number of Jain excavations. But the dramatic focus of the site is undoubtedly the magnificent achievement, the famous Kailash temple. The Kailash temple at Ellora was the final example of Brahmanical rock cut architecture in India. A precinct devoted to Lord Shiva, Kailash consists of freestanding and hollowed out forms carved out of the living rock of an entire hillside. The temple is a treasure house of visual treats and spatial experiences apart from the ritual overlays and symbolic significances. Some idea of the magnitude of the undertaking may be conceived when it is realized that the ground plan of the Kailash approximates in area that of the Parthenon at Athens and that its height is 1.5 times that of the same Greek masterpiece. In its plan and general arrangement, the Kailash bears a resemblance to the Virupaksh temple at Patatkal, a Chalukyan masterpiece. It was a royal temple developed probably first by Danti Durg and after him Krishna I in mid-8th century and then later by many Rashtrakuta kings including Amogvarsh and Govind III. Having subjugated the western Chalukyans and occupied their territory, the dynasty was at the fullness of its power towards the later half of the 8th century, during which time the Kailash was executed. The entire temple is oriented east-west, but contrary to the usual arrangement of the structural temples, due to its position on the hillside, the entrance is not on the east but to the west. The complex consists of a large scooped out enclosure measuring about 100 meters by 75 meters, cut into the rocky slopes, leaving the freestanding masses consisting of the entrance pavilion, Nandi shrine, and the main temple. A narrow trench of open space runs around it, forming a circumambulatory path at the ground level. The temple complex is enclosed on 3 sides by the rock mass and a 2-storied entrance gopuram on the fourth plane. The entrance wall has shallow pilasters flanked on either side by Shaivite and Vaishnavite figures. Access into the precinct is gained through a small opening doorway in the gopuram. Freestanding forms of elephants and decorative obelisks flanking the Nandi shrine exhibit an innovative adaptation of the construction technique and a variation over the temple typology of the period. The entrance gateway forms a bridge at the upper level to connect to the rock face on either side. A colonnaded corridor is cut into the periphery of the rock face of the scooped out enclosure at ground level, running along the 3 sides of the base of the temple. Kailash temple is organized around the scheme of centers and subcenters. One frame leads on to the other in a smooth transition but with emphasized expression in the form of a detail or special element. The technique of gradual unfolding the spaces episodically leading into each other and thereby directing movement orchestrates the experience of the space. This can be understood by a virtual journey of the precinct. The entrance is a comparatively small volume restricted in front by the structural base of the Nandi bull shrine above, arresting the direct visual access from the entry. The entrance panel is embellished with a bas relief depicting the goddess Lakshmi and two dwarpals or gatekeepers on both sides. It is further contained by the overhead plane of the bridge. This restricted space introduces the visitor into the scheme without announcing the grandeur of the experience to come. The obelisk or the decorative pillar acts as another datum from where three alternative routes take off, one leading to the caves in the rock face, one to the rear of the precinct towards the circumambulatory route, and the third to the upper level of the main temple. These two freestanding pillars or Dhwajastambhas, 51 feet high, one on each side of the Nandi shrine, are finished works of art gracefully proportioned yet strongly stable. Each bore the Trishul or ensign of Shiva to whom the Kailash was dedicated. But in addition to this, the shape of these pillars has further significance. During the early stages of the evolution of the Dravidian style of architecture, as has been already noticed in the very primitive pilasters of the Lad Khan temple at Aihole, dating from the 5th century, a type of capital was being formulated, the distinguishing feature of which was a cushion member above a constricted neck. A development of this combination produced the Dravidian order, of which these monolithic columns of the Kailash are an early and important interpretation. Route 1. The path upstairs into the rock caves through the narrow stairway scooped out of rock takes the visitor from brightly lit peripheral volumes to dark inferior spaces. There are 4 major rock caves in the complex. From the start of the circumambulatory path, on the northwest corner is the river goddess shrine. There are carved pilasters on sides with slender figurines of goddess Ganga in the center, flanked by Yamuna and Saraswati. The one cut into the center of north wall is a very large hall called the Lankeshwar, complete with a 16-pillared mandapa and garbhagriha. It almost rivals the main shrine. An important sculpture in the cave is of Shiva dancing the Tandava. Opposite to the Lankeshwar cave, on the south wall, is the Parlanka cave. It is unfortunately unfinished and must have been in the original plan of Kailash, to which it was connected with a bridge, which is now ruined. It might have been used as the residence of artisans who were working on Kailash. A small Yagnashala or hall of sacrifice is carved right of Parlanka. It is full of exquisite sculptures on all 3 sides. It is a unique edifice as its sculptures mark the very acme of the Rashtrakuta era. The second route leading towards the rear of the temple is a narrow open to sky pathway enclosed by the base of the temple on one side and a rhythmic arrangement of carved columns on the rock face of the other. This side is screened by a well-ordered corridor with a multitude of sub-shrines to minor deities. On the other side, the imposing character of the main shrine is obtained by the lofty and substantial plinth, which is 25 feet high and at first sight has the appearance of a ground story. The plinth is occupied by a grand frieze of boldly carved elephants and lions. Above the plinth, there are subspaces carved out on the north and south faces of the main shrine. This relief iconography depicts secondary deities Lord Shiva and his anthropomorphic forms, bringing to life scenes from his vast and complex mythology. The third route, through the doorway at the base of the main temple, leads up a narrow flight of stairs and connects the external plinth to a small pavilion at the upper level. The ascent articulates the transition from the worldly to the sacred realm of the precinct. The entire upper level of the temple is arranged as a series of ascending horizontal planes, from the Nandi shrine housing the statue of the sacred bull up to the sanctum, with minor increments in level, further expressing the transition to the heaven. A threshold accentuates each change in level. The main temple comprises of a hall which is divided into subspaces by an arrangement of quartet piers covered by a shallow dome and two side bays with projecting balconies overlooking the passage outside. These projections give subtle diffused light while giving way to the actually placed garbhagriha, the dimly lit sanctum containing the idol of the deity. This space is then directed heavenwards in the upward sweep of the shikhara, a pyramidal construction with embellishment over the sanctum. The superstructure is divided into three receding stories. The projection on the front face over the antechamber has a vaulted form. The mandapa roof is flat. In the middle is a large lotus with four striding lions carved in full relief. This biaxial arrangement of the horizontal and the vertical fused at the sanctum is characteristic of Hindu temple architecture. Overall, the walls and the shikhara of the temple have been conceived in a manner that increases the verticality of the structure, emphasized by the flying figures carved on the wall. The niche decoration follows the Chalukyan precedents but with an accentuated exuberance. A smaller secondary route takes the visitor round the sanctum at the upper level along an open to sky path connecting five sub-shrines housing varied forms of the main deity, each capped with smaller shikharas and sitting on smaller plinths. The sub-shrines cannot be placed in the same period as the main shrine, as there are much experimentation in the carvings on the walls of the sub-shrines. They might have been left unadorned or even unfinished, allowing the later emperors of the dynasty to add to them. Bridges connecting the porch to the main shrine with the Nandi pavilion also connects the upper story of the gateway. On the Nandi pavilion, the brackets are more elaborate. The corner pilasters with kanas at the top are almost free of the walls. The niches here are framed by pediments with arch-like motifs. The porches have intricately decorated columns overhung by curved eaves and their balconies decorated with pot motifs and foliate friezes. The most interesting aspect of Kailash is the perceived presence of craftsmen from various regions working together to produce the magnificent complex. The architecture and sculptures of Kailash clearly show the presence of craftsmen from Chalukyan region working along with those of Pallava and Western Indian regions. The diverse technique of surface treatment such as carving, relief motifs, iconography and rendering provide adequate visual clues for the visitor to decipher the extent, significance and sanctity of each realm. The temple of Kailash at Ellora as an example of rock cut architecture is unrivaled. Gradually, one becomes conscious of the remarkable imagination which conceived it, the unstinted labor which enabled it to be materialized, and finally the sculpture with which it is adorned. The Kailash is an illustration of one of those rare occasions when men's minds, heart, and hands work in unison towards the consummation of a supreme ideal. The Kailash Temple, a culmination resulting from years of building in the art of rock cutting and heralding the glory of the patron royalty, is a fantastic fusion of technique, technology, design sensibility, and socio religious philosophy.